What is it that makes a young life tragic? Is it the circumstances that surround their life or the people they trust? The case of 14-year-old Yummy Sandifer is one of the most heartbreaking stories to come out of Chicago. A teenager with so much potential, Yummy was surrounded by danger, betrayal, and violence that would eventually claim his life. His story serves as a tragic reminder of the deep impact our environment can have on our futures. Yummy's life, while short-lived, was filled with choices that led him down a dangerous path. It's a story of how a young boy, full of promise and hope, was lured into a world that would eventually destroy him, one that consumed him, took away his innocence, and cut his life short before it even had a chance to truly begin. But most tragically of all, Yummy's story is one of betrayal. Betrayal by those he trusted most. In this video, we'll dive deep into Yummy's life, exploring the influences around him, the choices he made, and how those decisions ultimately led to his untimely death. We'll uncover the dark secrets of the streets, the harsh reality of gang violence, and how one bad choice led to the destruction of a young life, leaving behind a community forever scarred. Part 2. The Early Years of Yummy Sandifer. Born in 1976 in Chicago, Illinois, Yummy Sandifer's life started just like any other, filled with hope, potential, and a world of opportunities ahead of him. However, his story didn't follow the typical path. Growing up in the rough neighborhoods of Chicago, Yummy was quickly introduced to the dangerous elements of life: drugs, violence, and gangs. It was a reality he had no choice but to face, living in an environment where the streets often became a place of refuge for those who felt neglected and abandoned. Yummy's family life wasn't easy. His mother struggled to support him, and his family faced poverty and instability, with little to no resources to help them out. Living in one of the most violent and crime-ridden areas of the city, Yummy found himself pulled into a world of gang culture and violence from an early age. The neighborhood he called home was rife with gang activity, and the Black Disciples, one of Chicago's most notorious gangs, was the dominant force in the area. Yummy's involvement in the gang world came quickly. The sense of belonging that gangs offered was irresistible to many young people in Chicago at the time, and Yummy was no different. He was eager to prove himself, to be accepted, and to gain the respect of those around him. By the age of 14, Yummy had already established himself as a feared and respected member of the Black Disciples. But it came at a heavy cost. He had to abandon his innocence, his childhood, and eventually, his very future. Though Yummy had dreams of becoming something more, his life was overshadowed by the pressure and temptation of gang culture. His reputation in the gang grew, but at what cost? He was still a teenager, but already he had been forced to make life-altering decisions. The choices he made in those formative years would come to define his fate. Part 3. The tragic incident that changed everything. As Yummy's role in the gang deepened, so did the violence that surrounded him. In 1994, when he was just 14 years old, he was handed a deadly mission by his gang leaders, an act that would set into motion a chain of events leading to his tragic demise. Yummy was tasked with killing a rival gang member, a mission that would cement his status as a hardened criminal. But the tragic irony is that Yummy wasn't even old enough to fully understand the weight of his actions. The shooting he carried out was intended to assert dominance and respect. However, it went terribly wrong. Not only did Yummy kill an innocent person, but he became a target himself. The same people who had once embraced him now turned against him, viewing him as a liability, as someone who had outlived his usefulness. His once prized status in the gang was suddenly questioned, and Yummy found himself in a dangerous position. It was in the aftermath of this incident that Yummy's paranoia began to take hold. As he witnessed the violent reality of the streets, he realized that his life was no longer safe, and that the people he trusted had no problem using or discarding him. The tragic irony of his life is that even as he desperately tried to survive in a violent world, he was already doomed by the very people he thought he could trust. Part 4. The Betrayal and the End of Yummy's Life. In August 1994, just a few months after the shooting, Yummy's fate took a turn for the worse. His gang members, sensing that he was becoming a threat to their own survival, decided to eliminate him. They saw him as a liability, someone who was too reckless and dangerous to leave alive. Despite his loyalty to the gang, Yummy's life was cut short by the very people he had once trusted. On the night of August 28, 1994, Yummy was lured to a location by gang members who promised him safety, only to betray him in the worst way possible. He was shot multiple times, the very people who had once called him a brother now turning their weapons on him. He died in an alley, alone and betrayed, leaving behind a shattered community, a family that would never fully recover from the loss of their young son. The betrayal Yummy experienced was not only tragic because of the violence that claimed his life, but because he had no escape from the world that he was trapped in. The people he had trusted most, the very people who had made him feel like he was part of something, had turned on him. His death serves as a heartbreaking reminder of the cycle of violence that consumes young people involved in gangs, and how quickly they can be discarded once they've outlived their usefulness. Part 5. The Aftermath of Yummy's Death. Yummy Sandifer's death sent shockwaves throughout Chicago. His story was a painful example of how gang culture takes the lives of young people, not just physically but emotionally and mentally. The aftermath of his death left his family, his community, and even his former gang members grappling with the horror of what had happened. Yummy's death was more than just another statistic. It was a tragic loss of a life that could have been, a young boy who never had the chance to grow up, to change, or to escape the cycle of violence that had claimed him. Yummy's case also drew national attention to the issues of gang violence, youth involvement in crime, and the lack of support systems for children growing up in violent neighborhoods. His tragic end became a symbol of the destruction caused by gang culture, and his story continues to resonate with those who knew him and those who have followed his case over the years. Part 6. Conclusion. Yummy Sandifer's story is one of the most heartbreaking and tragic tales of violence, betrayal, and lost potential. It is a reminder of the harsh realities faced by young people growing up in violent neighborhoods and how easily they can fall prey to the temptation of gang culture. His life, although cut short, serves as a cautionary tale, urging us all to understand the dangers of the streets and the impact they have on young people's lives. Though Yummy's death was senseless, it also brought awareness to the cycle of violence that continues to affect communities across the country. His story is a tragic reminder of how quickly a life can be stolen, how fragile innocence can be, and how much we all need to do to protect the next generation from the dangers that lie ahead. If you found this story impactful, please like, share, and subscribe for more true crime stories. Let me know your thoughts in the comments below, and feel free to share your own insights or theories about Yummy's life and death. Thank you for watching, and I'll see you in the next video.